So what I want to look at in this first video is the first ideology that we're going to be introducing into this course, and we're going to look at the idea of Jewish nationalism. Now, what Jewish nationalism is normally referred to as is Jewish Zionism. And this is really where the bedrock of conflict comes from, because we have these two conflicting ideologies. And I'm going to, in this video, talk about Jewish nationalism, and in the next video talk about the basic opponent to this, which was Arab nationalism. And then we're going to talk about where they came from. So Jewish nationalism is really the idea of there should be a Jewish homeland and a homeland for the Jewish people, of Jewish state itself. And that's where the term nationalism comes from. And it came as a response to things like the Enlightenment and the French Revolution, where the idea of freedom became a little bit more involved. So we have more of a view of freedom. So the idea that it wasn't up to your monarch to decide what is right for you. As we see in the French Revolution, we see our monarch get beheaded. We get the French Revolution like that, and we get a bit more of the same in the Enlightenment. We get the idea of values and philosophies going and being a part of our natural daily life rather than religion. So that's also where we see a development of science as well. And with these, we also get the term anti-Semitism. Now, anti-Semitism is just basically the prejudice, the injustice against the Jewish people. So Jews, anti-Jewish. And we'll see this a lot in this history as we go through to the Second World War and the anti-Semitism towards by the Nazi Party and obviously the Holocaust, and that also influences this Arab-Israeli, the problems in Palestine as well. But what we also get against this from anti-Semitism, we get the introduction of the main and the most activist form of Zionism, which is political Zionism. Now this is really important for the introduction of the Zionist movement. So political Zionism is where we see a certain a bedrock of views that are introduced into this ideology. So we see that the political Zionist believed that Judaism, so the idea of there being the religion of Judaism constituted a nation. So the idea of Judaism means that they should be a nation. There should be a nation around the Jews, a nation for the Jews, and that the assimilation of the Jews into everyday life, so the assimilation of the Jews into normal countries like European countries, so we'll just say into Europe, was void of hope. And this is as we see from the 1890s, where we have things like the Jewish pogroms, so pogroms against the Jews in Russia. So this is where we start to see a lot of anti-Semitism in Europe, and this is also the case in places like France and Britain, where we have very anti-Semitist groups that start to form, which really just bring the idea of a Jewish nation into question. We like the idea of it more when it's the more anti-Semitism. And so with this, all what I've just said, we have the final point of political Zionism, which is that a break from Europe is simply necessary. Okay, so with this, where are we going to go from here? This is just the general ideas of the Jewish Nationalist Party. Well, that didn't go very well there. And what I want to talk about now, just down here, is the different thinkers. And we have really the biggest thinker as part of Jewish nationalism was Theodor Herschel. Theodor Herschel, which is spelled Z-L. And he is an advocate for the Jewish state. He developed and published a book called Der Judenstat, which literally translates to the Jewish state. So Judenstat, Jewish state, and he also founded the World Zionist organization. I'm just gonna put org, and basically became the father and the developer of this political Zionism. And by this, he became the first person to lead the Jewish Congress, the Zionist Congress. So the first Zionist Congress, which was in 1897. So in 1897. And I just want to bear in mind, at this stage in history, we don't really have much of a conflict within Palestine, and it's just Jewish Zionism came as a intellectual grouping before it became an actual social movement. And so, but at this same time, the main aim of political Zionism was the acquisition of Palestine. So as you can see, their intentions were beginning to was to move to Palestine and to form a Jewish state. But at this stage, it was a very small group that only existed in intellectual circles. And this is where we're going to move on to the next video, where we're going to talk about the immigration into Palestine in these early years.